All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to take one single super common word and just peel back all the layers. We're going to see the entire universe of meaning that's hiding inside of it. And that word? It's division. So seriously, when you hear that word division, what's the very first thing that pops in your head? Just take a second. Is it, a thing you can touch? Or is it more of an idea, a feeling? It sounds like such a simple question, right? But as you're about to find out, your answer might be totally different from the next person's. For a lot of us, this is probably it. The first thought is something physical, something simple, the act of splitting something up. Like the division of a pie at a party or slicing up a pizza. It's real, it's straightforward, and it's probably the very first way any of us ever learned what that word means. But then again, for a whole lot of other people, that word doesn't bring up images of dessert. No, it brings up flashbacks to a classroom. It's not about splitting a physical thing at all, but a purely abstract one. That's right, good old arithmetic. The process of figuring out how many times one number can fit inside another. This is that other huge foundational meaning we all get drilled into us in school. So far, pretty simple, right? We've got splitting things and we've got math, but this is where it starts to get really interesting. Because you see, those two definitions, the ones that are by far the most common, they are just the tiny tip of a massive iceberg. The word division is kind of like a linguistic chameleon. It completely changes its color and its meaning depending on where you find it. Let's check out some of its other identities. Okay, so get this. In the military, a division isn't something you do at all. It's a thing. A really big, really organized thing. It's a massive group, we're talking thousands of soldiers, that acts as one of the main building blocks of an army. So here, division means a distinct unit, a part of a much larger whole. And you see that exact same logic at play in the corporate world. A big company has its divisions. You've got the marketing division, the sales division, the R&D division. Again, it's not about the act of splitting. It's about the thing that has already been split. It's its own self-contained section inside a bigger organization. This idea of division as a category, it even stretches into the world of science. In taxonomy, which is just the system scientists use to classify all living things, a division is a super high-level group for plants and fungi. It's just one step below kingdom. So for example, all magnolias belong to the Magnoliophyta division. The word literally helps bring order to the entire natural world. Now this is where it gets kind of mind-bending. Just look at the contrast here. On the one hand, you have division as this cold, logical, precise mathematical process. And on the other, you have division as a messy, emotional, human disagreement, a political division, a social division. It's the exact same word, but describing two completely different universes. And believe it or not, we're still not done. Not even close. Back in 17th century music, a division was actually a kind of melody. Inside a giant pipe organ, it's a specific set of pipes. In the world of law, it can mean how a debt gets split up among a group of people. It keeps going. Which leads us to the big central question here. Why? Why does our language overload a single word with so many different jobs? Is this all just random chance, or is there actually a reason, a system, behind all this complexity? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating. To really get to the bottom of it, we have to look at this initiative called Basic English. It's actually the whole foundation for the Simple English Wiktionary, which is where all this info came from. And the whole point of Basic English is to find clarity in all this complexity. And here is the kicker. Here's the most important piece of the puzzle. The word division, with all of its crazy, varied meanings, is officially considered one of the simplest, most fundamental words in the entire English language. It's on a special, hand-picked list of core words. And that list has just 850 words on it. Exactly. The whole idea behind Basic English was to create a vocabulary that was small enough for anyone in the world to learn quickly, but powerful enough to say almost anything you needed to. And to make that happen, each one of those 850 words has to be a hard-working multi-tool. So Basic English is basically a stripped-down, simplified version of the language. And by limiting the total number of words, you force each word, like our friend division, to cover a ton of ground. It's a trade-off, really. A smaller vocabulary means each word has to have more meanings, but they all kind of branch out from that one core idea of splitting something or being a part of a whole. And this really gets to the heart of why any of this matters. The biggest challenge in learning any language isn't just memorizing words, it's learning all the different contexts. The whole point of a simplified language is to try and create a shared foundation so we can all understand each other a little better. I mean, when you see it all laid out like this, it's wild how much work this one little word does. It covers everything from abstract math and concrete military units to how we organize companies and classify nature. It proves that without context, a word like division is almost meaningless. It's all the other information around it that gives it its real power.
So the big takeaway here is that a project like Basic English isn't about dumbing down a language at all. It's about building a bridge. By agreeing on a core set of powerful multi-purpose words, you create a starting point, a common ground for clearer communication across different cultures and different skill levels.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought to chew on. We just spent all this time looking at one of only 850 basic words, and we found an entire universe of complexity packed inside. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If this is what simple looks like, what does that say about the true nature of communication and the absolutely incredible job our brains are doing every single second just to build a little bit of shared meaning?